We designed FCP Auto Duck with default values that should be good enough for most cases. However, we also gave the user control to precisely adjust all the parameters used for ducking. In some cases, though, this might not be enough, and perhaps your experience in the audio field isn't particularly deep. That's why we've released a new version of FCP AutoDuck NX called FCP AutoDuck NX, which adds an important new feature. Once you have loaded the audio files for the dialogue, music, and optionally sound effects, you can press the threshold button. This opens a new window where you can view the waveform of the dialogue track. In this window, you can also see the threshold and hysteresis levels. We'll talk more about this setting later. As you can see, in this case, the dialogue's audio level is particularly low, so you can press the 2x or 4x multiplier to increase the amplitude in order to view particularly low threshold values with greater detail. The most important value you need to consider is the threshold. When the spoken voice has a volume higher than the threshold, ducking is applied to the music track and the effects track if present. If the sound power of the speech is too low, the threshold needs to be lowered. Zoom into the window to view a segment of the audio in greater detail so you can accurately recognize the speaking moments and lower the threshold value until it is below the speech level. You could theoretically lower this threshold value a lot, but if there is background noise, you need to keep these two levels clearly separated. What is the hysteresis value? To understand it better, we need to explain how the human voice works. When we speak, and this also applies to professional speakers, the beginning of each sentence has a much higher sound power than the end. This means, simply put, that when speech starts, it has a certain volume, while when it ends, it has a noticeably lower volume. The hysteresis value is used to specify what the exit point from the speech audio cluster should be. If you look closely at the speech waveform, you can see that at the beginning the threshold value can be raised a little bit, but at the end it needs to be lowered a bit. This is the hysteresis level, explained very quickly but clearly enough to be understood. If you've ever wondered what all these parameters in the application setup mean, we're now going to explain them. The principle of ducking is simple. Adjusting the volume of one audio track based on the volume of another, specifically lowering the music volume when there is speech. Consider this example. At the top, we have the speech track. At the bottom, the music track, synchronized. According to the basic principle of ducking, when the speech begins, the music must be lowered and then raised again when the speech ends. The music reduction is specified in decibels. The application's default value is -15 decibels, which is generally good for almost all cases, but we recommend adjusting this value to your needs and the content you are producing. Now listen to the effect of this ducking.
In a world where secrets threaten to tear everything apart,
as you can hear, the attack and the end of the speech are decidedly very abrupt, and the effect is quite annoying. This is because the lowering and raising of the music volume cannot be sudden. It must be done very smoothly. Let's focus now on the beginning of the speech. As we just mentioned, at the beginning of a sentence, the volume is very high, so the speech bursts into the sound mix in a disruptive way. This is a good thing because the attack of the speech is strong enough to mask the lowering of the music. However, if you make the music lower quickly but not instantaneously, the transition will appear smoother. In this example, the music is lowered over 0.2 of a second. This is the attack window parameter of FCP AutoDuck NX. Try listening to the effect now.
in a world where secrets threaten to tear
This is the system used in radio stations to duck the music while speaking. However, if you work with files and are not forced to act in real time, you have a big advantage. You can start lowering the music even before the speech begins. For this reason, in FCP AutoDuck NX, you can specify the pre-roll, meaning how much the beginning of the music fade down should precede the beginning of the speech. The default value of this pre-roll for FCP AutoDuck NX is 0.2 seconds, and more often than not, this works well almost every time. The window, meaning how long it takes for the volume to lower, is instead set to 0.3 seconds. These are perfect values for corporate videos, documentaries, and promotional content.
In a world where secrets threaten to tear everything apart.
If you're producing fiction, our advice is to triple both values. Let's now focus on the final part of the speech audio cluster. In this case, things are much more delicate because there isn't an audio starting loud and disruptive. Therefore, the return of the music to its normal level must be done with much more relaxed and smooth timing, in the range of 0.8 to 1.2 seconds. The pre-roll of the music raising can also be brought forward to 0.3 to 0.4 seconds.
Threaten to tear everything apart.
The advantage of using FCP AutoDuck NX is that all these keyframes are generated automatically. So, after exporting, you can manually adjust each of them directly within Final Cut Pro.
Try now FCP AutoDuck NX for free, full-featured with a 7 days trial at ulti.media/duck.